Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. In my last video, we made some of these chaos style end grain cutting boards. Cue B-roll of the finished product of those. Isn't video a magical, amazing thing? This footage is from the future. So if you've ever made a cutting board before or one of these chaos style boards, you know that they produce a lot of waste and offcuts and goofy things such as this. So I thought have a little fun in the shop today, just to get out here and do something. I'm going to see if I can come up with some more cutting boards or some more different things out of these scraps here, or the offcuts from the cutting boards I made from scrap cutting boards, which are made from offcuts from projects. Is that enough scrap lumber levels deep enough for you? Let's get started. So normally with end grain boards, you end up with little strips like this that aren't perfect enough to use on the boards. Maybe they didn't have a perfect glue seam or something and you threw them to the side. So I have some of those, but the biggest thing with the chaos boards is you end up with these wedges as you're trying to create some kind of bias angle on your cutting board blank. So I have a whole bunch of these, and I think something weird is going to happen with those. For, you know, just to kind of kick things off a bit, I think we'll do sort of an easier one, maybe an easier one. We'll see. I spent a little bit of time looking through these things, and I have this kind of thing. I have the original two boards here that had the cracks in them, and I have a long strip here, which happens to be the right length for this hypotenuse here. But these two main pieces are cracked, so I think what would be interesting is to remove the cracked area and inlay one of these, or glue in one of these offcuts from later on in the chaos board project, and have a kind of little strip in there. So I think that's what I'm going to do first. This is going to be a lot more glue ups. Cutting boards is all about glue ups. Buy a lot of glue. So I am going to just figure out a rough angle for these to be cut at to remove the cracks, make those cuts, and then we'll glue in the, I guess, the spacer pieces, which should be plenty interesting. All right, that's kind of a cool first thing. Well, I guess we'll throw that one in the pile and go figure out some other goofy thing to make. That's kind of cool though. Some fun angles. Okay, let's see if I can walk you through my ideas. I've been sitting here thinking about this. So I have all these triangle pieces, so I was thinking maybe I could do some kind of like, I don't know, starburst, not moon, like sun kind of thing going like this. But I don't know, I guess that would work. It works out to be a lot of waste. I know, none of this is really waste because it's already waste. But I also have this board here, which isn't that great, and I was planning on cutting it up as part of the last chaos thing, but it is a lot thinner than the other ones already. And at this point, I think it doesn't really matter. So I'm thinking of doing this. So I have these larger kind of triangles, or I could use this one too, I suppose. Anyway, I have these larger ones, so I'm thinking what I can do is use this to actually remove a lot of the defects in here, get rid of these cracks and things on this side, basically have a symmetrical base off of here, and have these take up that space. That's going to actually contribute 2 more triangles to my waste pile. But after I get that reassembled, I have these guys, which I can glue back together like this and maybe inlay or inset those between it. So this is going to be a few cutting aparts and gluing back togethers. But I'm thinking this might be kind of interesting. So I'm going to pursue this idea, and I will see where it takes me. So I am having a fun time with this. So I have changed my mind a little bit since this glue up here is uneven. This side is wider than this side. I think I'll just add this little strip on here, which should kind of even things out. And I want to keep this kind of triangle look in the middle, but I do have some pretty poor seams through here. So there are some gaps in here, and then right here, the seams didn't line up perfectly. There's a little bit of a step there. Not really a fan of that. So that was kind of a, yeah, not good. So what I will do instead is remove all the maple from this and leave this cherry triangle in here, and this guy will go on something like that. So that'll be the rough final look of the board. We'll have this cool cherry triangle thing going on in the middle here, framed in with all of this stuff. So I'm gonna go through and do some more glue ups and get this thing ready to go. So we got the Illuminati board. So that's a goofy one. So I have these offcuts left. I also have these guys here, but I think they're a little too thin for anything. I think these will be the actual waste pieces from this project. But I'm thinking for this one, I'm going to try and do some kind of weird shape kind of thing, maybe this fan pattern. So with all these wedges and strips together, I can put a straight edge down here and have kind of a flare out and kind of square off up in here. So I guess that'd be what, 5-sided weird shape. So that should be pretty cool. We'll see how that goes. I have a few cracks to fix first in here and here. So I'm gonna grab some pieces and glue those in, and then we can start working towards gluing together all these little wedges and things. And we'll see where this one goes. So these are ready to go. I added this little block on here to make this about the same length as this one. And I think I changed my mind again. I know. This is how I do things. So one thing I want to do is actually make a cutting board like this with this wedge in here. That way the two outside edges are parallel, so I get a square board. That didn't happen on this one because I didn't really think about it. So if you look at this, it's actually wider down here than it is up here. I could leave it like this and have it be an out of square board. I think it's a little bit not out of square enough, or it looks like someone did a bad job. And if I trim it square, the outsides will have a taper to it, which I think will be okay. I'm not worried about that. But for this, I thought it'd be kind of fun to find the actual wedge to go in here to make it actually square again once it all gets glued back together. So I'll trim this up, and then I got this little wedge here, which I'll cut to whatever the actual angle needs to be for this wedge, and glue that up, and I should have a pretty cool looking board. Basically 3 wedges coming together, and I don't know. Let's just see where that takes us. We're just having fun, you know? We're spitballing, having fun, getting rid of scraps, having a good time in the shop. So it seems like I have still a good amount of scraps here. This is actually kind of a fun one. I like this one. That turned out really nice. So put that in the pile. And we got all of this still. So I think instead of trying to make some kind of weird kind of shape with this, I'm gonna actually go through and make a little baby chaos board. So I have some bigger chunks here which I can rip into more strips, and we'll glue those to the other strips I have here. And I guess maybe do that again. We'll do 2 iterations through and see what we end up with. Maybe we'll get a small like 8x12 board or something tiny like that. That is basically just a little baby chaos board. Chaos board. So I think I'll call this the Baby Chaos board. It's kind of a cute little, tiny little bit of chaos. Just a sprinkle, a dash of chaos. So I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 of these scrap wood boards is a pretty good amount of, I guess, extra yield out of the scraps. These are all the significant scraps I have left from making all of these, so I think I'm going to call that good enough. I've reclaimed enough of the scrap lumber. However, I have one little bit of scrap left, all the little trimming pieces from cutting all the little pieces at the table saw. So how about we make some coasters? I got some epoxy. Might as well try and make some chaos coasters. Is that a thing? It probably is. So I just degassed some epoxy, so that's ready to go. I have a cup which is going to serve as a form for these coasters. So it'll be somewhat cylindrical, somewhat conical. Of course, the conical shape allows for some draft angles, so you can actually get this thing out of here once it's formed into a solid block. Now, if we're slicing it up later on, we're going to need somewhere to hold on to it. So to maximize the amount of material for actual coasters, I'm going to drop in this little blank. That's just a piece of MDF, which will allow me to hold down to that and slice all the way down to that thickness without sacrificing too much of these things. So I guess we'll see how this goes. I might have to put this thing back into the vacuum chamber as I'm going back and forth to keep the bubbles out of here, but we shall see. Let me just submerge this piece of MDF first, and then I'll start putting in some of these little offcut things. I'm trying to gradually build this up so I don't end up with a lot of trapped air, because I don't really want a bunch of giant air bubbles in this thing when I'm all done. And maybe I'll put some pigment in here. Nah, that's fine. I think I'm just gonna do it like this. I think clear will be fine. Yeah, so there's a fair amount of bubbles in there now. I'll pour a little more in here and then pop it in the chamber. There is a lot of air in there. A lot of air. So the bubbles seem to find their way to the top, so I think I will just kind of leave it like this, and maybe I'll poke it every so often and get some more bubbles to come up to the very, very top surface. But it's looking like, if I look in from the side of the container, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of bubbles down in there. They just seem to be contained up top here. So hopefully maybe the top area is just sort of like a bubbly waste area, and all the good stuff is down below. But this would definitely be smarter to use a penetrating epoxy first on these little pieces of wood, as you can see how much air is inside of a little tiny block of wood like that. This is all air bubbles from inside of the wood. So we'll let this cure and we'll see what happens. So this has to be one of the silliest looking things I have ever made. This should be fun to slice up. So I think next, let's get these cutting boards all finished up. I do have a little bit of flattening to do, especially on this guy. It's pretty different in thickness. Luckily enough, it's a pretty nice day outside, so I'm going to head outside with the router sled, get all these things serviced and flattened, and it's going to be exactly the same process as the video on the chaos boards. So I'll go through the process with the router sled, flush everything up, bring it all into flat and consistent thickness and all that good stuff. Bring it on in here, run it through the drum sander a few times to clean up some of those router sled marks, give me a head start on some of that sanding, and I can route in the handholds into the ends with the router and edge guide and a core box bit, and then from there a little bit of edge treatment and finish sanding, and then these guys will be ready for some finish. So while the finish is curing on the boards, let's do something with this guy. So first off, it has that draft angle on there still from the container. So I think I am gonna make coasters out of this, and I think to make them all the same size, I'm first gonna turn this into a cylinder instead of this conical shape. That should make it a lot easier to slice, and I'll make them all the same diameter. So let's hop on the lathe here and make this thing a cylinder. This shouldn't be all that eventful, unless something goes horribly, horribly wrong. But we'll see. So this thing turned into a little more of a cylinder. It's going to be a lot more stable and easy to cut. And I went ahead and just saved myself some sanding time by sanding it up to 220 on the lathe. I'll probably do the edges again once to get it all figured out, but at least this should save me some time. I attach this block here on the back, which is going to give me a little more meat to hold on to as I get down to those last few cuts. That's again going into that sacrificial piece there on the bottom. I'll make the cuts here with a little V-block sled thing, which is going to help to support this thing through the cut. One thing you want to consider if you're cutting round stuff on a bandsaw is just the force dynamics of how this blade is going to enter the piece of round work. So if you can imagine the blade entering over here, there's some space down here which could cause this thing to pivot. If it starts to pivot into the blade and you're not ready for it, it'll do something like that, and you might have to change your pants. So the V-sled helps to support this thing, keeps it from rolling, and gives you a little more surface area to hold this thing. You can see being supported over here. So I'm going to go through and make some cuts here. I'm going to guess I'm going to do like 1/2 inch thick slices. I think that probably sounds like a good amount, but yeah, we'll see. Once I have the slices all done, I will probably just pass them to the drum sander a few times, get started on the sanding that way. Do some initial sanding with the sander, then I'll put some kind of edge profile on there, and then after that point it's going to be finished sanding, and we'll see how these things look. Hopefully they turn out all right. So this was a fun little project, or fun little kind of detour for me. It's just fun to, get in the shop and do something that doesn't really have a whole lot of, purpose or like end goals, and just kind of mess around and play a little bit. So let's take a closer look at the boards as well as these goofy coasters. So let's go in kind of the order that these things were made. So there's the first one. You can see in order to make it rectangular, once I got taper, which actually kind of looks kind of interesting with this weird wedge. It makes it not look rectangular, but it is actually rectangular. It's a kind of a fun pattern. The next one, of course, the Illuminati board. I don't know about this one. It's just a little bit on the goofy side, but still pretty darn cool. And then I think this one was next. Was it? Yeah, I think it was this one. This is that wedge thing, and this piece of the wedge didn't extend far enough out, so I just trimmed off this corner. So it's got this kind of funny, I don't know, clipped corner look design, but I don't know, 3 triangles on a wedge, or 2 triangles on a wedge, sorry. That's pretty cool. And then the baby chaos. That's just 2 iterations of chaos, just like the other ones, and it's a good way to get rid of a lot of the other stuff. So this one actually turned out pretty cool. Now these coasters turned out a lot better than I thought they would too. There aren't too many bubbles in here, at least that aren't super noticeable at this point, which is kind of nice. And one thing that I was kind of surprised of is I actually like less wood than resin. So I was thinking like, oh, I really want to have ones that have a lot of wood in them. So I think that would look cooler, but the more resin you have, the more transparency you have, the more you can see through them. So, you know, just did a quick job on these things, so they're not nearly perfect at all, but as a fun proof of concept and something a little different here in the shop, I think it worked out pretty nicely. So it's always nice to get in the shop and do something that has a relatively low risk as far as actually succeeding, just kind of messing around and seeing where things take you. And this is a fun one. I'm glad I decided to play with scraps, I guess, and see what came of them. So I'm happy. I had fun. That's what really matters. And these are kind of goofy. So hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of playtime in the shop. I know I did. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the cutting boards or anything else here in my shop or the coasters, please feel free to leave me a comment, as well as I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.